bit prescient because it was last fall before we had all these issues in our community with the fires and the damages. So the topic today is how community members can prepare for emergencies and disasters. Another uplifting lecture. During the final stretch of an accidental career working on the water as a commercial mariner, tugboat captain in the port complex, Eric returned back to school to take a graduate studies program in the field of emergency services administration at Cal State University Long Beach. Upon completion, he pivoted into a new career with the City of Los Angeles within its emergency management department. Welcome.
Thank you, Emily. Appreciate it. Good morning, folks. And if I may, I'd like to introduce you to my colleague, Donnie Hall. She's here to support. And would you like to say a few words? Or?
Oh, just good morning, and thank you for having us.
Yes. All right. Thank you. And thank you for letting us have a presence here. It's admittedly not an easy conversation to have, but kudos to you for your interest in learning how you, and even more importantly, your loved ones and neighbors can achieve a higher level of preparedness. So the City of Los Angeles has a signature program, and you could see the acronym RYLAN, and that stands for the Ready Your Los Angeles Neighborhood. And so I think Joel touched on the theme of community, people talking to each other, and the city is aligned with that at its most organic sense, how we can achieve the highest level of inclusive preparedness with your community. And those will be the people that you may see even more than your family. So getting to know your neighbors is a key part of that. And I'll lead off with what we do as a city is when we meet groups like you that are engaged and want to learn more, then we can also help facilitate going to little subsets of your community and meeting with neighbors and kind of kickstarting and energizing the conversation about preparedness. So yes, as Eileen said in her introduction, I do come from the commercial maritime industry. It was a great way to provide for my family, but at the end of it, I felt like I wanted to see what more there was in life, something bigger than myself. But you would think, well, global shipping and supply chains, that's pretty massive. That's obviously much bigger than any of us. But I got to see in the last couple years how something as sprawling as a global supply chain can be vulnerable, and how that impacts everybody. And so that led to me thinking that how everything that all our critical infrastructure is tightly interconnected. So for shipping, you will recall there was the Suez Canal a few years ago, a heavy wind event, and a pilot was on board a container ship transiting up the Suez Canal when the winds blew the ship off course and it became grounded. So that's a critical juncture point for shipping, and within hours there was a backlog of hundreds of ships, which turned into thousands of ships. And that's just from one vessel that had an errant decision of transiting at the inopportune time. So that just spurred my thinking, and like again, Eileen mentioned a new adventure and purpose in my life. So, but it's a great job. So. And that was my last day of work. I already had a foot in the door with the city, and they have a great internship program. So for those of you with younger ones in the family, this affords you or them an opportunity to get kind of a trial basis, see if this kind of career is a good fit. And so I took that, and after a year of the internship program, I was offered a full-time position. And so here I am today. But another key part of my journey was being more involved with the community. And so for myself, I live in southeast Los Angeles County, and they have a pretty robust neighborhood watch program in the city of Lakewood. So they have 400 watch captains, roughly 400 blocks. So it's pretty good engagement. It's about 80% of the blocks are represented by a block captain. And so we become the natural focal point for going back to our neighbors and meeting with them and present information, including emergency preparedness plans. So I'll speak more of that Ryland and what that means for you possibly. And but it's a great way to utilize assets that are around you in your immediate vicinity. And this here is where I gravitated to emergency communications. I went through a CERT program, and that's the Citizens Emergency Response Teams that in the city of Los Angeles are still taught by firefighters and offer a 3-day, 21-hour program that covers a pretty robust number of topics, and not only preparedness, but learning how to go through your neighborhoods, identify the strengths of the people around you, what they can bring to the fight in terms of preparedness. You could have a retired plumber, school teachers, people that work night shifts. You can get creative in the process of developing a plan. So I'll touch more on that later. But emergency communications, you could see where it's logical. I communicate with ships and vessel traffic controllers. And so radio communications was like a in for me. So that's where we're located. We're a small agency within the city of Los Angeles, roughly 32 full-time employees, and 5 or 6 of the interns, or we call them fellows. But we like to think that for our small size, we pack a lot of punch. We had several legs of operations going when the fire started. We have a emergency operations center. Oops. Oh, that's on 500 East Temple. And that's about a half mile east of the City Hall. And what's interesting about that building is that it was after 2001, the attacks on the Twin Towers, the city allocated funding to, when they realized it's best to have a standalone emergency management department structure. So a referendum was passed, funding was allocated, and in 2008, the completion of the 2-story emergency management building was completed. So it's featured by an elevated foundation that rests on isolated beams and rollers, so the movement of the building can be in line with any seismic activity. And here you can see the picture of the Emergency Operations Center, and that's where we coordinate and get all our needed partners within the city and outside to facilitate that coordination of the overall response. So that really came into play when we had this activated around the clock for over 6 weeks in response to the fires. But It has about 96 seats, so 17 pods, and so we can draw from the maritime complex through the port of LA all the way to the foothills where DOT has a big presence and everybody in between. So emergency management, we stay awake a lot of times thinking how to get our residents more prepared, because we do face a myriad of threats. And you can see the most pronounced ones: fires, earthquakes, flooding. We had a bit of flooding where on blue sky days, 1 inch of rain doesn't constitute a pressing emergency, but we see that the burn scar areas results in areas that have changed and facilitate the flow of water and erosion. And so we activated in response to that because there were people that did have to evacuate within the city. So we also focus on the human-induced ones. I spoke earlier of how everything is tightly interconnected with our critical infrastructure. And so terrorist attacks, threats, airplane crash, material spills. Out of the port, there's a 24-hour rail of materials, both in stored in containers, but also loose bulk containers, chemicals, liquids. And so we kind of raised the risk by transporting these materials at all hours of the day. Fun fact is that at the end of this year, possibly into next spring, the Vincent Thomas Bridge, which connects the two ports and is a vital cog for inter-port complex traffic, that'll be shut down. And the plan is for the decks to be redone. So that will take that bridge out of commission for 18 months or more. And so we have to think, you're up here in this part of the city, how would that impact you? So we, as emergency planners, have to try to think ahead of that and come up with plans to kind of mitigate the impact on folks. And this is just a representation of how something like a cyber hack, and we call it the IT or information technology sector. When you get a ransomware attack, how it can compound its impact on many other sectors of the economy, as well as our day-to-day life, that we wouldn't necessarily think have an impact. So you can see it could, we call it cascading effects, and it's one cyber attack can impact a multitude of these sectors, from water and wastewater supplies, the defense industry in El Segundo, as well as the airport. So just examples that when we do our planning, it does help to have that creative second and third level impact that we don't consider right off the bat. But most of our emergency operation plans in the city of Los Angeles has, by and large, identified a large scale earthquake as our greatest risk, no matter where we are in the city. And that's because of the San Andreas Fault that runs south of Imperial County to the east of San Diego. And actually as far south as the Baja California. But this goes up 800 miles throughout the length of California. And I've identified historic earthquakes in the California history. But the bottom one is when the last major earthquake that hit the San Andreas Fault occurred. So that's roughly a 200 or 150-year cycle. And so seismologists like Dr. Lucy Jones at United States Geologic Service, she's the spokesperson kind of for the earthquake industry. She's the one that you'll be seeing on television as a public face, the trusted authority of what that means for us. And so that's why the risk of that and the general time frame is put out there as the scenario, about a 7.8, 0.9 earthquake. So in recent times, in 2019, the ridge crest was a very significant 7-point+ earthquake. So it was real specific in terms of its impact, and it was in the earth, centered up in that area, and so there was significant damage, but nothing that constituted a vast impact to the rest of us down here in the Southland area. So this is a visual representation of that earthquake. The one thing that they do not do is the science is amazing. I've seen in the last 10 years their ability to push out information of when an earthquake is occurring real time is a possibility now, but it does not, unfortunately, forecast when an earthquake will occur. They can give, based studying past history of what a trend might be, but they cannot predict when it would happen. So what are our choices then? Your being here today tells me that we want to be ready for when that happens, not a minute afterwards, but 30 days, a year ahead, whatever that may be. Whatever you can do to get prepared is the preferred outcome from this. Oh yeah, I will share all these slides to Eileen and Joel. And so within these slides are links to video pieces that kind of flesh out what some of these concepts that I'm speaking of. These are photos of what occurred in the '94 earthquake in Northridge. And we learned a lot from that. And we learned, it hammered home the point of touching on community, and that was a key vocal point of what after action reports revealed. These photos just illustrate when you have the earthquake, what's most likely going to follow afterwards is fires. So we still use a lot of natural gas in our heating and our appliances. And so we'll talk about what are the simple things we can do to lower the risk of those fires. But if it's a numbers game in a city of 4 million plus, and with events coming up like the Olympics and our great workforce that comes and works here in Los Angeles during the day, you can add another million plus easy to that. Firefighters, as heroic and skilled as they are limited in what they can attack and mitigate. So fires is, when they're small, is when you prefer to fight them versus when they grow. So remember that point as we talk about who's going to be the help after a disaster occurs. The answer would be it's most likely going to be us, at least during that golden hour when you can make the most difference with the life safety, risk of injury, property damage, and environmental risks. That's just a photo. The seismology is a science that's always changing. It takes advantage of telemetry from satellites, so as well as the sensors that have increase in accuracy to know what's going on in the ground below us. So this one of note for Los Angeles is the Inglewood-Newport Fault, and we see other manifestations of damage through the land subsidence, but that's in the PV area. If you were to travel on that road that goes along the coastline of Palos Verdes, you'll see a lot of movement. It's very active. It moves daily. Within a week, it moves and it cuts across the road, and you see that the Public Works Department has to constantly patch that road. So it's very active. And in fact, the landmark Wayfarers Church had to be taken down. And that's, fun fact, that's where my wife and I got married. So it hit home, you know, that we live in a very active geologic area. So we spoke earlier of cascading effects and multiple impacts to different critical sectors. That's a representation of the California aqueduct and the pipeline that runs down throughout the state down to us. And so we have to kind of bear that in mind. What will we do without water? And it could impact communications, sewage, just the basic services. So we spoke earlier on fire. That's just dramatic representations of past fires, but also in recent times we heard the accounts of availability of water being a very pressing issue. I don't know the outcome or responsibility from that, but the Palisades fire that was identified as hampering firefighting efforts. So here you see water after the Northridge earthquake became a very, very pressing matter. We've learned from that, so getting water to folks at the Eaton Fire as well as the Palisades Fire, there's our non-government organizations, Red Cross, Rubicon, they were real quick to respond to at least give life-sustaining water to residents as their regular water supplies were gone. So, response times. This graphic shows the outer ring. The professional help would include the firefighters, law enforcement. So they cannot be everywhere all at once. But as we go into the inner circles, it's ultimately those closest physically. Family could be 1, and 1A would be our neighbors. And so the bottom picture is the Superdome in aftermath of the Hurricane Katrina in 2005. FEMA learned a lot, and they get credit for developing this graphic because they've seen that this is the case. So personal preparedness, if we do believe that that's the way we get most bang for our buck and give ourselves and our loved ones a sense of being proactive, there are simple, inexpensive things tasks to take on. And what I'll speak of with Ryland and that Ready Your LA neighborhood, I'll be working off of, we call it the so-called shingle. And within this simple guide, we would come to your neighborhoods, or you, as neighborhood leaders, you can go to them and get them engaged by taking on these simple, inexpensive steps to increase your preparedness. And this is this umbrella of the services or actions you can take. And it starts with preparation, organization, and practice. Those are the things you can do before that bad day happens. And then after the bad event happens, you'll learn how to connect and get information from the city as well as your local electeds, how to communicate with each other. And then we end with training, because what is the use of learning all this if you don't practice and train? But the good news is that we can help with that. We can physically go to you and your subset groups and work with you to kickstart that. In technology, I get to make some recommendations. I have no financial ties to some of this equipment, but through the LA County, I don't recall if at the Skirball event last year, there was someone from the county giving out radios. Maybe Eileen can correct me if I'm wrong. But that's a good side benefit by going to these public safety fairs that are put on by our electeds throughout the city. If the county is there, they're very proactive in pushing out, giving out these emergency radios and alerting systems. So the first thing is developing an emergency plan, and it can be very simple. Where is it going to be our meeting place for our family and our neighbors? You can identify a garage or a park or someone's house that has become a hub for other neighbors to meet at. Who is our point of contacts within our family that are not from the area? I have a sister that lives in the Las Vegas area, and so she's my out-of-town contact. But it can be friends, of course, or co-workers or colleagues. Building a plan that's, when you talk about special items unique to your family, that'll be your financial documents. We found out with the Palisades fire, which we support through standing up a disaster recovery center in Westwood, which is still ongoing. Hopefully you folks have heard that going on Pico. It's a space owned by UCLA, but they were kind enough to let us inhabit that space. They do a lot of servicing of folks that have lost even the ability to identify to their insurance carriers who they are. That means they don't have their identification even. Good news, at that place, at the Disaster Recovery Center, those services are provided, and specialized items like your documents, your policies, your medicines, they recommend having several weeks worth of your medication that you take. And so those are all the kind of conversations you would have. And you would do that for your neighbors too. Bless you. And of course, our furry friends are our family too. And so we put out a checklist, and it's in your books, I think, too, that gives a basic rundown of a go bag that you would have for your pets as well, including the medication, IDs, and so forth. Learning how to shut off gas, that can be done at your home yourself. So you first want to identify the location of that. And you can use a simple tool. It's hard to describe in words, but you can shut off the gas yourself. Just realize that once you shut off the gas, you do eliminate the risk, or lower the risk of fire. Lower the risk, but you just can't turn the gas on yourself. You have to go to the gas company to turn it back on. But it's places like Home Depot. If you go to safety fairs, sometimes someone will be handing out free tools. It's just like a slotted wrench that turns the valve 90 degrees, and then you shut off the gas. So you being here and listening in from home, you're all engaged, but you may have members of your family or friends that are still agnostic about our risks. I found an excellent resource, a multimedia resource through LAist. They put out a series of podcasts. I highly recommend if you're stuck on the freeway, which we all are, you can tune into a podcast, and it's called The Big One, and it gives a good get you the mind space attuned to the possibility of what an earthquake might look like and its impact. So The Big One is centered on earthquakes, and they just put out a series 2 years ago for the Big Burn. So they talk about fire science and what are risks and how the changing climate has really increased those risks to all of us. You had a question, sir? Thank you. The gentleman brought up a great point. At most homes, new builds, have automatic gas shutoffs. So that is true. And some even have a lighted dome that indicate that the automatic shutoff has been activated. So thank you for that. I'll share this video clip. Hopefully the folks watching online can see this, but it's a brief one, and it'll show.
When the earth shakes, the ground moves, and things start to fall, you'll ask yourself, how prepared or unprepared are you? Have you removed objects from over the bed and over your head? Anchored your possessions securely to the wall? It won't be a pain, and you're not doing it in vain. Are your emergency kits packed? What about your family, your friends? Do they know what to do, how to get in touch, and where to meet? Do you know how to drop, cover, and hold on, covering your head and neck? What if you're outside or in a car? After the shaking stops, look around. Figure out what to do. Stay away from damaged areas. Turn on a radio. Reach out for help. And if you're trapped, do not move about. Stay calm. Only shout as a last resort. Once everything and everyone is safe, get prepared. An aftershock could be on its way. So before the earth shakes, the ground moves, and things start to fall, get prepared. Make a plan. Practice what you know, because an earthquake can happen anytime, anywhere. You never know.
This is a representation of the apartment building that collapsed after the Northridge earthquake, and that resulted in the most fatalities. So what the city of Los Angeles has learned is to identify structures and without tearing down the existing structure, learn how to best shore up those structures that exhibit this kind of construction. So that's an ongoing program. They identified thousands of homes within the city and have roughly 50% of those that have undergone that type of seismic retrofit. And it's an ongoing program. I don't have the link to it, but it's put on by, I believe, the LA Department of Building Safety. And so I recommend that. The bottom right part of the graphic, it doesn't show it real clearly, but it shows how they would shore up that building so it won't collapse as readily as without it. The state has also put out earthquake brace and bolt program. I may have the maybe bolt and brace, but that's active program. I signed on for it. There's a pretty good waiting list, but they increased the number of zip codes that are allowing people to get the construction of a seismic retrofit on homes that have elevated foundations shored up, mostly by bolting, putting in reinforced wood sections to make them more resilient to the side-to-side shaking. So we'll talk about the Ryland program. I spoke with you, encouraging you to meet with your neighbors. And I'll show a little video on those, like an introduction to this program.
California has taken a major jolt.
Our number one priority at the Emergency Management Department is the safety and well-being of everyone in Los Angeles. And we know that being prepared can make all the difference if there's a major disaster. Firefighters, police officers, and paramedics may not get to every single block immediately, but we can all be there for one another before first responders even arrive in our neighborhoods. And we can get together and get prepared today with Ready Your LA Neighborhood or Ryland.
This free resource is a guide through the steps to prepare, organize, and train for whatever nature or fate might bring our way. Ready Your LA Neighborhood will help you learn about your neighborhood resources, such as skills and equipment you possess collectively, the location of utility shutoffs, and where people who may need more assistance live.
All of this information will empower you to act quickly after a disaster strikes, to reduce injuries, limit damage to your neighborhood, and even help save a life. So please, join us and help make your community and your city better prepared.
Every day, we protect and serve Angelenos. However, in a citywide disaster, such as a major earthquake, there simply are not enough of us to immediately help everyone.
In disasters like the Northridge earthquake, our firefighters respond to where there is the greatest need. This means you will likely be on your own for days or longer. Being prepared is essential to surviving a disaster.
So what do? Fortunately, we have a new program to help you prepare for disaster. Ready Your LA Neighborhood, or RYLAN, helps you and your neighbors take simple, proven preparedness actions. It all starts with you getting to know your neighbors.
Now, you might be thinking, I don't even know my neighbors. Well, by using Ready Your LA Neighborhood, you will get to know your neighbors and you will create a disaster response plan together.
How are you? Thank you for coming.
During your 90-minute meeting with your neighbors, you will determine a gathering place where you will meet after a disaster. You will discover the skills that you and your neighbors collectively possess and learn how you can help each other after a disaster. You might even find out that there's a nurse who lives right across the street. And you may also find out who might have equipment such as a ladder or crutches.
An important part of your meeting is filling out the contact list. This lists everyone, including your neighbors who may need assistance, such as those with a disability, those who are elderly, children who may be home alone, or homes with pets. If you know who lives where, then you'll know who to check on when something happens. Keep in mind, you don't share this with anyone but your immediate neighbors. Finally, you and your neighbors will learn a simple response plan that will help you know exactly what to do in the first hour following a disaster. This will help ground you and help reduce that sense of panic that many experience in a disaster situation.
So how big should my neighborhood be? A neighborhood should be the right size to help each other in that critical first hour when we can save lives and reduce injuries and property damage.
We know from experience that means about 15 to 30 single-family homes and the entire building if you live in an apartment or condo. Or maybe just your floor if it's a large building. If you live in a more sparsely populated area of our city, 5 to 7 homes make sense.
After you've determined your neighborhood boundaries, you can visit readyla.org to obtain your materials for your workshop. At that time, you can also request EMD assistance if you would like. We will provide you with everything you need for a successful meeting.
What's appealed to us, kind of taking the next evolution for the Neighborhood Watch to help us all, as a community, since we're already together, to now consolidate our resources. But more importantly, it just really drove the message of taking care of your loved ones. And there's nothing more important to me than taking care of them.
I think what we have is not just, it's neighbor helping neighbor, but it's a community thing. And I think everybody wants to be part of a community.
The first step was getting to know our neighbors, which was big. So now we know who's home, we know who works.
And it's really interesting when you get a group because somebody is strong in almost every area that needs to be covered. So and if there's not, then people will work together to make that happen anyway. And that's the whole community, neighborhood familial thing. There's always someone who will help someone. That's the most amazing thing that I've discovered about this whole thing. There's always someone who's willing to help someone else. It's pretty awesome.
It's really that easy. Determine the boundaries of your own neighborhood and then contact us to get your meeting materials.
Alrighty, yeah, I'm almost belaboring the point, but yeah, I have business cards and we got our website. I'll give you the information for that that you can reach out to us if you want to kickstart that effort. But we've met with other churches. I met with the LA group of the deaf, and so people with functional needs are a big consideration. So learning what their plan would look like is something that we can help shape, because it's not difficult, but just knowing those things are something we can do. Because we don't want to assume everyone has full functionality and full faculties, that everybody merits and are worth being part of the discussion and what your plan would look like. So these are just lists, not just lists, but these lists are in your books as well. And as I mentioned before, you'll find special items that are particular to your needs. And so when I'll share the slides. There are links to many of the notification systems. But I'll have these postcards advocating for folks to sign up for what we have at the city. So we, of course, put that out for the earthquakes, fires, but also the debris flows. We'll put out message, or where there's rain events, planned events too that have an impact on traffic. So please consider signing up. You can, it's free, of course, and you can tailor it to the kinds of notifications you would like to receive. So going back to our access and functional needs, there are tools that facilitate communications with them. Because those members of our neighborhood that have mobility issues, language barriers, they all have to be incorporated into your planning. So everything resonates with what FEMA calls the whole community approach. So it's just reiterating the same concept that we are our own help till the help gets there. And so I'll end on the big events coming our way. It's pretty daunting to consider the setbacks that we had at the start of the year. But the party line is they're still going to progress with the World Cup next year, the NBA All-Star Game. So these are big planned events. And of course, in 2028, it all culminates with not only the Olympics, but the Paralympics after that. And so these are planned events, but you still have to see how that would impact your community. And that's the end of my presentation. I'm glad to take any questions from here as well as people online. Oh. Hi there. Oh, great question, sir.
The question.
Yes. Gentleman asked, we've become really reliant on our phones to provide us a wealth of information. And most given days, yes, they do keep us informed night or day. But we've seen in recent events, I'm thinking about hurricanes Helene and Milton, wiping out the cellular critical infrastructure. So people lost their cell phones. They lost power. So when we speak of the cascading events, when the power infrastructure is out, our phones, unless we have portable generators, will lose our cell phones too. But in that case, they lost both, their power supply as well as the cellular communications. So in that case, they reverted to some extent standing up ad hoc ham radio networks. That became a vital source of welfare traffic, people checking in, inquiring where their loved ones are, and then other people within earshot of that radio network would be able to provide information, as well as locations of gas stations, people who are medical service providers. So they had to think outside the box, but that's a great question, because when we become reliant, we're going to have to find backup. There are emergency radios that run on batteries that continue to push out information. NOAA will continue to broadcast information. And I spoke earlier of the LA County having presence at some public safety events, issuing free weather radios. So thank you for that question. It'll be the technology of yesteryear that'll have to come into play.
Next question. I believe in '94 the landlines held up for those that still have them. Is that likely to continue?
Thank you. The gentleman asked landlines from '94 earthquake. Those still stood up. Yes, I still have my landline at home. I won't give that up. And on the East Coast after Hurricane Sandy, a lot of our older folks in those communities impacted were relying on landlines to get their communications. And so there's been a pretty robust discussion at the California PUC level to still to not have the cellular service companies eliminate landlines. So as far as I know, we
but most of them are. I mean, even our ATT at home or whatever we have, I mean, it's all ultimately cellular, right? Well,
who funds you? Do you get funds from the federal government?
That's a great question. And well, because I'm thinking of our ongoing response taken for the wildfires, but our general day-to-day funding that sustains us through the year, that comes out of the general fund with the city.
From the city?
Yes.
Because I heard something that I think the federal FEMA money there's a problem with funding there.
Yeah, they are admittedly strapped, and funding, is something that we constantly. The reason why I paused is because FEMA will reimburse support services that we provide. I speak of the Disaster Recovery Center, because we have staff assigned to that to keep that running. So those kinds of practices in support of FEMA-led actions can be reimbursable. And I'll elaborate further, because if you do trainings within your communities, your electeds might be able to get those trainings recognized as a mitigation practice, and that can result in reimbursement as well. So there are revenue streams that can be pursued.
okay, well, Eric, thank you very, very much for informing us today.
Thank you, Joe.
I got